I have a question for you. Most of us have to start a job, right, with a client that we don't know much about. Maybe it was a referral, maybe it was just a strange, right? And we have to build these relationships. And we also have to end it right because we live in a world where reviews are very important. So I just want to brainstorm with everybody. What is your best ideas for how you start a job and how you end a job? What are the key things that you think about? And what do you coach your people to do? So, tool time. So just anybody take a shot at it. You know, I know that in in dispatching you have scripts and all this, but I'm talking about when you're face to face with a client. What are the couple of things that you keep in mind? And Zach just went to a major certain path. Yeah.
So I mean, for me, first impressions are a big thing. So when I walk into a client's house, I try to be as respectful as possible with their home. And I also try to find commonality. So when I walk into the home, I'll take a look at the property, or maybe they got some surfboards, maybe they got a cool car, maybe a nice garden, compliment them on it. And then just from there, sometimes you don't even talk about the job. You just relate to the person, and that's really important. Because although like we do a lot of we work on stuff, we're working for a person, so the most important thing you could really do is connect with that person, because people buy from people that they like and trust. So that's like first and foremost, you want to be able to establish that.
And when you're finished and you present the bill, and what about that?
Even like as I'm going through the process, I also let them know, like, if there is, like, my goal is to provide you with 5-star service. So if at any time I'm going through my procedure and you don't feel like you're receiving that, let me know so I can adjust, and I'll be able to provide that to you. And then basically at that point, once everything's done and you presented them with their options, the initial option with why you were called out that day, and then you also presented a few other options that you've noticed that you'd recommend. Whatever it was that they decided on doing, complete that, and then just ask them, like, okay, like, were you satisfied, right, with my service? And if they say yeah, then then you can go ahead and ask for the review. But that's just kind of like how I go about it, like, step by step.
Well, but that's a really good tip. I've seen you work. I didn't know that you consciously keep the client with the goal in mind that, hey, I'm trying to provide you with 5-star service. If I fail in any way, let me know while I'm still here.
And
That's
also
wonderful.
like to have a homeowner involved with me. Sometimes it's not, every situation's not the same. You'll walk into a house and sometimes they're on the phone and they're just like, it's over there, like, come get me when it's done. And you're just like, okay, how am I really gonna like connect with this person because they're on the phone, so what I try to do is ask them for a little bit of their time, 5-10 minutes, come look at everything with me. It's not every case where they want to actually come with you and look at everything you're doing, but when they're with you, you have a lot of control, and you're able to point things out and agree on things together, look at things together. You're not just coming back to them and you got this. They're like, dude, what the heck, But you also want to know how to, like, let them know, hey, I'm here and I am going to be thorough. I am going to look at everything. It's not that I'm really trying to find an issue. It's just more so I'm here to help. When you take your car to the mechanic, when he's doing your oil change, he looks at everything. He doesn't just change your oil and go, have a good day. He goes, hey, your serpentine belt looks a little rough. When's the last time you changed your transmission fluid, your blades, all that. So I kind of look at it from that perspective. Like, your home's your number one investment. Why would you neglect that? Why would you not want to know? So, like, for me, informing them is the most important thing you can do. And when you inform people, they can make a good decision that's best for them. But they don't know what to do if they don't have info.
How about you?
I think a lot of what you do when you first meet with a client or a prospect or someone is kind of dictates how the relationship will go long term.
Mhm.
So if you allow someone to be taking advantage of you or being rude to you, or not necessarily even that, maybe it's more of a, like, I've had people ask to meet on Zoom or something like late in the
Mhm.
day or on a weekend or something, and usually don't do weekends, but, you know, kind of setting the right tone in that first meeting, because if there's some way they can either take advantage of your time or just treat you in a certain way, or they say like, this is what I'm doing, and making you intimidated to give advice on something or whatever it is, that's just, the longer you have that relationship, the more they're gonna feel comfortable doing that.
Mhm.
So I think like that first meeting is important.
Yeah.
It's great. Peter?
I'm like Zach. It's so important to make a personal connection with the client. When someone asks me to come into their home, I'm honored. For me, it's a privilege. I don't ask a lot of people to come into my home.
Right.
So when someone asks me, I respect their home. I respect their time. I want to make a personal connection with them. They're asking me to come into their home to make their kitchen look nicer, more practical. And it's going to be there maybe for the rest of their life. I don't know. And I want to do a good job at that. And for me to do a good job, I have to know the person. And like Zach said, you find some commonality, a surfboard or a picture of the Eiffel Tower on the wall.
Right.
And you build a rapport with that client before anything. They might, as far as numbers go, pricing, billing, that kind of stuff, I wait for them to ask for it. I don't pound them, well, we're gonna use black walnut, it's gonna cost this much. We're gonna use rift white oak, it's gonna cost twice as much. But we can get away with, you know, this. I don't talk that way until they ask me about it. Then I know they're open to it. Otherwise, I feel like I'm pushing something on them, and I don't want to be pushy. Like Justin said, set a tone with them. If they're pushy, I back off, take note of that, and don't push anybody's buttons. Just be very respectful and make a personal contact with them. I have clients that I've had for 40 years that still call me up, and they'll say, and it's good to have the same phone number for that reason. And they'll say, hey Peter, do you remember me? I live in Brentwood and you did my house in 82. And I said, what street was that? Yeah, Batavia. Yeah, I remember. We did that island. Yeah, okay. He said, well, are you still in business? I go, yeah, sorry to say, I'm still in business. Still working. And well, we moved to the other side of Sunset, the more prestigious side of Sunset Boulevard, and we want you to do our kitchen again. Great. So when you build those relationships that last for that long a time, that's saying something, and that's so important to me. And I'm so honored when someone calls me up like that. I had one guy, they remodeled their house, but he loved his kitchen cabinets so much, he had them take all of the cabinets out and put them in the garage. They tore apart everything, they did what they had to do, and then he put all the cabinets back in. They didn't change the kitchen, they just had to get everything out of there. He didn't want to touch anything. So that means a lot to me. And I want that in my customer. I want them to feel good about asking me to come into their home and do their work for them. So you're right. That's the most important thing, personal contact, personal relationship.
Well, I mean, I think Johnny's not doing the electrical work. Johnny's not doing the plumbing work. How do you maintain those relationships?
Well, on projects, the relationship would be a Paul, a Pierre, or Raphael, so it's sincere, I connect with those guys and do everything we can to help them. I do a lot of the job walks, the initial contact with customers.
Right.
Other than like, hey, can you install a ceiling fan? I don't really get involved with that. I'd say, you know, for us, if I were gonna give a tidbit, we talk, and it probably applies to most of us here, you know, what we do is not really that special, you know, electrical work. There are probably 500 electricians that are good in Orange County, otherwise they wouldn't be in business, right? So we pound this in our training. Being a good electrician doesn't make us special, because there's 100 calls they can make, right? What makes us special, we literally call it details matter. We have a document called details matter. In fact, next time we do our presentation, I made a note, I'll go over that, and maybe stimulate some ideas for people. But we talk about leave it better than you found it. Find a way to make it cleaner than it was when you got there. We talk about never put tools on finished surfaces, you know, so you have countertops, you have floors, we wear booties, we lay out blankets, and so just these little nuggets. And if you go look at our reviews, you'll see less than half of them say, man, the way he twisted that wire nut was awesome. Or he knew that the code required 2 VFCIs for the countertop. No, it's he greeted me with pleasant greeting. He showed up on time. He cleaned up after himself. And so this is kind of what we pound on our people. And so I would say try to find a way to make it, leave it better than you found it, and do something simple that separates you from the normal.
Good.
Yeah.
Sharon, you want to add something?
Yeah, so most of my clients obviously are coming through the door first. We're the same way, like either I have relationships that stem from when I first opened, and you know, I have files for those particular people. That way we have everything on file and we can go back in and see what we used and what we did, and maybe we have diagrams or whatever. But it is, I mean, I've made a lot of good relationships along the way, that I guess for me, it's all about listening to the client first. When they walk through that door, they're gonna tell you what they want. You're gonna listen to their needs. We'll ask you questions, you know, about their household, you know, whether they have kids, pets, if they're, you know, single, whatever. And that helps us guide them. You know, they've already come in with an idea of what they want, but maybe it might not be the right thing. And I am really, really careful on walking that fine line too of saying, oh no, this is not gonna be what you want. You're gonna want this instead. Because at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to what they're comfortable with, the styling, the color, the texture, whatever it may be. And so a lot of other stores, they're just salespeople, order takers, and they don't care. You come in wanting a certain product, that's what you're gonna get, okay? And then they find out later, and I have this so many times because the industry has driven the waterproof vinyl plank. Driven it. That's what people come in for, and they don't know what they don't know. And until you kind of educate them a little bit, and you know, I had one yesterday tell me, you know what, you're right. I have a neighbor that got the waterproof vinyl plank, and she's sorry she got it and wishes she would have done something else. That's a big expense when you're doing your whole entire house. And then you make a wrong mistake. But it's because you go to these stores that don't care. They just care about making that sale. They put in whatever you want. And
you're paying for it.
And I love making those relationships. I mean, and like you said, Zach, the connection with people. I do it all the time. Even when they come in here and I'm not in their house to see what they have going on, you find out a lot about somebody when you get to spend that time with
maybe
somebody.
if you even want to work for them at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've had those too. But it's really fun. I mean, I had one last week that we had so much in common. It was so much fun. He had more in common with my husband than he did me, but at the the end of the day, he says, you need to let your husband build a plane. I went, you know, I mean, it's just that kind of fun that you have with people and getting to know them. And, you know, sometimes I'll lose a job, not out of the fault of me, but something happens and they ended up going with somebody else. But I always get, and I'll get a nice email thanking me for my time and what I gave to them, and they are so sorry that it didn't work out or whatever, but at least yeah, I'd rather have the job, but you know, at least I gave them something,
Yeah.
to where they appreciate
Right, they value
my time,
you, they value
that
your
they're not
time.
just ghosting me,
Right,
where I'm
right.
not getting that interaction. So,
Yeah, I mean,
it's-
Steve
it-
has a kind of a difficult thing, right? I mean, when people purchase, do they resent the fact that they have to pay you the 3% or whatever?
Well, I wish it was 3%, but
You wish it was 20%? Yeah.
I wish it was 3.
3%. Oh, no, it's not 3% then.
Agents have cut their own throats in the last couple of years. But the toughest thing for me, I'm walking on eggshells. I'm like 85% listings, and when I meet a client, it's usually a referral.
Yeah.
But I have to walk into something like, you guys walk into their house, and I have to walk in and I have to look at their house and tell them what I honestly think about their house. So it's really a touchy subject when you just meet somebody, right? So I tell them right off the bat, I do like Zach does. First I establish a relationship with them. I let them learn a little bit about me. And usually it's a referral, and I usually talk about the person that referred me and tell them how great that person is, like get that friendship going. But then I tell them right off the bat, I go, I'm honest to a fault. And that's what I sell myself as. I sell myself. Throughout the entire transaction, you're gonna get the honest truth. I'm gonna call you if something's going wrong and tell you, and I'm gonna fix it, but I want you to know I'm not gonna hide anything from you, and they really appreciate things like that. But when you're picking apart somebody's house that they've loved for 20 years, and you're saying, well, this has to be changed and that has to be changed, it's hard,
hard.
It's very hard. Like I have to,
We have this attachment.
John Albrecht,
John Albrecht?
the guy that called me, he finally called me.
Love him.
I was on the phone with him the other day, and we're gonna meet in November, and I was just, he was asking what I wanted to do, and I told him, I probably want to stage your house, and he goes, I don't know about that, and he got all offended over the phone, just because I wanted to stage his house. Like, I already know it's a touchy-feely thing, so when I get there, I'm gonna say, no, it looks great, it looks great.
Right.
Can we just get a stager in there to move some pillows, do something, but it's a difficult situation, but I'm just honest, and I make them feel, this is one of the things, I always put myself in their position. If I was selling my house, god damn, I would go completely nuts having somebody come in and tell me what's wrong with my house, because I did all the work myself. So I put myself in their position, and then I make them feel comfortable with me. I tell them, no one is gonna be in your house without me being there, and they go, how are you gonna pull that off? I go, I will not put a lockbox on your house.
Right.
And I don't. I'm a non-lockbox realtor. That's part of my marketing, is I say, there's lockbox realtors and there's non. And there's only 1 or 2 non that I know of in the entire Orange County, and I'm a non. I will be there. I sold in Crestline, Temecula, Menifee last year, never used a lockbox.
Wow.
Yeah, because I can sell in one weekend, and I can set up all the inspections for one day, and I can be there. I know how to sell, and that's what I tell them, and then they feel so much better, because throwing a lockbox on somebody's house and letting strangers walk through is really tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. So that's my biggest sales point, is that.
Wow. Anybody, you want to add something?
I can relate to everything you guys have said as well. For me, when I first go in, it's all about listening.
Yeah.
And learning from listening as much as I can. I ask some questions, like you do. And then, let's see, you're really selling yourself, I believe. And that's what I tell my girls all the time. It's like, when you go to the house, they can call anybody to come over and sell them the coverings or carpet or whatever.
Right.
So when you walk in, you're selling yourself. So whatever, I think just listening, I have one gal that works for me, I love her to death, but she talks too much about other things. And I say, focus in and talk about those things like after you've finished it, cause you don't wanna overcomplicate them in my line of work. I could bring in 20 books and we could look at fabrics for 5 hours. I don't do that. I know it sounds crazy, but what I do is I go in the house first, listen, walk through the house, and then I say, okay, I think I have exactly what you need. And I'll go in, I'll bring in, a lot of times, just a hand sample or two, and the job is sold. You go, that's perfect.
Same thing with color consultations. If I bring out a fan deck, it's
Oh,
it's
too much.
awful.
You
It
overwhelm
just
them.
goes way crazy.
And the best compliment I can get, and I get it often, is you made this so easy for me. You know, and somebody like Dana, that client there, she says, you know, I've done this 3 times, and you came in and just made it easy. And then it's time, I mean, I'm out of there in a half an hour, 45 minutes.
That's nice, yeah.
I'm not in there for 3 hours either. So, but that's, you know, 20 years of doing something that you do with your eyes closed. And I think at the end, for me, I tell my installer can make or break you, probably like you guys, all your workers. And so I said, you're the last impression my client sees, and it needs to be good. It needs to be great. And we're all striving for that 5-star review and referrals. Because like, I looked at my calendar for this week, you know, just getting back to swing. I have 4 clients so far this week. They're all repeat clients.
Beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
it blows me away that, you know, when you get this call, hi, and you know, it's in your phone, like, oh, it's so-and-so, I remember who she is. And they're like, we bought another house, or my kid just bought a house, or my neighbor bought, you know, and it's a great feeling, you know, but we all work so hard for that. And when you go into somebody's house, that's what we're all doing. We want that review, or we want that referral. We want them to be happy. That's all we care about. Because, you know, nowadays with bad reviews.
Oh, you can be in
Yeah,
trouble.
that's true.
Well, I took up a lot of time, and anybody else wants to, Ben?
So there's a couple of really good books on this sort of topic that I personally like. One of them is by Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, and the other is by Jeffrey Gitomer, The Little Red Book of Sales. And just a couple of principles from each of those books. One is that Jeffrey Gitomer talks about is that we're not in the business of trying to sell something to somebody. We're in the business of helping people to buy, and basically being that trusted advisor, that consultant to help draw out from the person what it is that they're really looking to do, they're looking to accomplish and achieve, and how to provide the best solution or give them different options, quite frankly, and help them, you know, decide for themselves. The other thing that Chris Voss talks about in one of his books is that one of the ways that human beings are able to establish trust is by you as the trusted advisor, the consultant, or the professional, you know, telling people, basically setting the expectations, your value proposition, etc., and saying, hey, you know, this is how I work, this is what I'm going to do, and then basically doing it. And so, you know, really there's several steps or processes that we go through in working with clients, from, I think as Steve said, establishing that relationship, building that rapport, you know, setting the expectations, trying to understand the person across, or people across from the table from us. What's their mindset? Are they really a do-it-yourselfer, or do they actually understand and appreciate the value that a professional can bring to the table? And quite frankly, it's really more of a process of, rather than trying to get to yes and get people to sign on the dotted line, and really actually more of a process of getting to know as quickly as possible, and understanding, hey, you know, quite frankly, for whatever reason, we're just not a good fit, whether it's personality, whether it's your budget, whether it's your mindset, whatever, and respectfully exiting them from the process. Like, you know what, you're not a good fit for, you know, Sharon, you know, you would probably be a good fit for a Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, based off of what you're looking for. Yeah, and so again, really, it's getting to know as quickly as possible.
But you know what? The whole exercise tells us how we can refer, because everybody's like, I'm never going to forget that fact that you're a non-lockbox guy, right? For you, you made it simple with Zach connecting and constantly informing the client about what he's doing. Same thing with Peter, and then Sharon educating, right? And then Johnny creating a whole culture around this so that every one of his employees know that they need to leave a little better, right? I mean, we should transcribe this, and this would be a perfect branding exercise,
Would be
right?
great.
Aaron,
Red
you-
Book of Sales.
Aaron and Andy, and you want to have some, you want to talk about something?
We've
Sir?
got a couple more minutes.
I think
Yeah, we're.
one thing that's really important is
Yes,
setting
'cause-
expectations for your client up front. Kind of what Steve said, you know, that way they know what to expect, nothing's a surprise. 'Cause
Yeah.
you know, you're handling their biggest purchase in their entire lives or selling their biggest asset. So you definitely wanna set expectations up front and find out what's most important to them in the process too. And, you know, just learn,
I'm managing expectations all the time.
yeah.
Yeah. But you know, in your case, you could make things a lot complicated. Like you said, if you open the swatch of all the different paint options. And,
All of my color consultations come back to around to what they liked in the beginning anyway. It's
Yes.
like, well, this is what I was thinking, and that comes out first. What colors are you thinking? And then color consultation comes in, and we're back at what they liked in the very beginning. So it's really don't make it more complicated.
I like to call that the in and out effect, like In and Out's menu.
Yeah.
You've got 3 choices, and that's it. And there you go. And you never can find a place where you can go in and just drive up. There's a line around every one of them.
Yeah.
You know, people like simple.
What I took away from this session is it's bottom line is people don't buy electrical repair or fixing a hole in a wall. They buy the human connection.
Right.
And any problems that do arise out of your business relationship with them is usually caused by not giving them enough attention. So it's
And you know what, Aaron, if it's not a human connection that they even want, that's when you're gonna see them go to a Home Depot or a Lowe's, right?
Yeah.
So they're never.
They
your
wouldn't be
client
coming here,
anyways,
right.
That they don't care, cause they're not gonna get a human connection there.
I don't know if it's the final one.
there's 20 people standing around not doing anything.
I think like Peter was saying, if you can show the value, people sometimes don't even really care what it costs.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it's like if you can show the value,
Yeah.
you don't have to be pushing what things cost.
There's
I mean,
a-
as long as
there's-
it's not outrageous. But
There's a YouTube video on Mercedes sales. It's an old like the 50s, and it's like 1.5 hour, and it shows you the amount of detail that they discussed that's been engineered into the car. So, and it teaches you how to qualify. So, anyway, I think we've got a bunch of reels that we can cut out of this conversation that we can use. So, thank you guys.
Yeah.